look for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the JWB Rental Property of the Week. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the third place finisher in the annual Jacksonville Spike Ball Tournament, a man I like to call GC because he's got genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flows, because he's a great co-host, and because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, GC.
I think I'm going to introduce myself as the third place finisher in the Spike Ball event for at least another 3 years. It's going to be great. Great to be with you all.
And today, our guest investor, star of the show, is a gentleman who comes from the Northeast, recently relocated to Houston. He is somebody that started watching the show and now he's on the show. Look, Ma, he made it. It is Shawn McCarville. Shawn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Dude, these are my favorite stories, and I can't wait to dive into it with you. Our community manager, all-star teammate Madison, is not with us today. She's out there volunteering.
Absolutely.
So, it is what it is.
That's what we do.
But we're going to spell Madison here in a second. But for right now, I want to welcome you. If you're listening on the podcast, you're watching on Facebook, or you're watching on YouTube, love having you on board. But there's a better way for you to do this. Go to nyais.com, register for the show, join us live, make friends in the chat, get a nickname. It's a lot of fun. Go to nyais.com, show up on Tuesdays and or Thursdays whenever you want, and you get to be part of the roll call. You ready for the roll call, Shawn?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Bill Shields. Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Buenas tardes, Bill Shields. I know it's also feliz cumpleaños to you, Bill Shields.
Ooh,
a couple of days ago. You
that's
weren't able to meet us, but happy birthday, Bill Shields. Carl Thompson, good morning from Colorado. Drew Barnhill, the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, is in the house saying great day, everybody. John Hannon, good afternoon, all. Miguel Ángel Sanudo, buenas tardes a todos from Spain. Leo Ferganen. I'm gonna really work on that, man. I when I see Leo, I think in Spanish, and then I start pronouncing. Anyways, Leo, good to have you, my friend. Good morning, all the way from the Bay Area. Dean Curry reporting from not Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio.
I love that.
Thank you, Dean Curry. Jen Filson, the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. Greetings from beautiful Monterey, California. We got Leslie Wilson, also from Denver. The Denver contingency in the house after a strong IRL meetup. Love that. Ken Moline, and I'm assuming Carolyn Moline, the first and the matriarch and patriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. Good to have you in the house. Joanna Bautista's in the house. Hello, JWB fam. Noah Rondari's back in the house. Hello, everyone.
I think Noah needs a nickname, by the way. He shows up all the time.
It's true. Noah,
I think we need a nickname.
We got to think of a nickname.
We'll bring it to the committee.
Okay. This happens. You got to throw it in my brain. I'll start figuring it out. Bring it to the committee. Lee Bishop, MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. He's in the house. Hello, everybody. Michael Sweeney is back. Hello from Virginia Beach. Good to have you back, Michael, in the house. Who else? We got Jameson Financials. Camille Jameson from Jameson Financials is back. Camille, you're officially a regular. I love it. Lydia Murphy is in the house from Connecticut. Is that one of your friends, Shawn? Connecticut?
Yes. Yeah.
Love that. Welcome, Lydia.
Welcome, Lydia. We call that Shawn's entourage effect. Who else we had? Bill Shields and Tara Klein. Yay for catching one live today. Tara, thanks for making time for us, Tara.
She's on the JWB team. You know Tara.
She's on JWB team. Thanks for making time, Tara. I love it. I love having you on board. And that's it. That's roll call for today. Without Madison here, we're going to have to go to Madison shares good news told by GC.
First of all, let's talk about the good news of where Madison is. So every month or two at JWB, we get to go and volunteer as a team. And so Madison is with, call it half of the JWB team now, volunteering at Habitat for Humanity, building houses here in Jacksonville and helping in other ways for the organization. The reason why you might say, well, Greg, why are you not there? And why is it only half the team? Is because this is a new problem that we have at JWB. Now that we have about 100 folks on our team, it's hard to find an organization that you can bring 100 hardworking people to get a job done, that there is that much stuff to do for one day or one place that can hold those folks. So it's a new challenge for us. What we do many times now is we'll have half of our team go one day. So I get to go tomorrow and the rest of our team gets to go tomorrow. So that's some pretty cool, good news.
That's good news.
But I also have Madison's really good news that she prepared in advance and wanted to share.
Tell us.
She wanted to give an update on our JWB Cares donations. And so for those who aren't aware, not only do you get to invest in rental properties, but we also make it really easy for you to contribute to a mission that hopefully aligns with your goals. And JWB Cares is here to help with the affordable housing crisis. And we raise money and we build houses and we donate them to deserving members of our community. And we make it really easy for clients to invest. And so when you buy a property with JWB, we're going to ask you, do you want to donate to JWB Cares? And it's super simple. You say yes, and it shows up on your closing statement. And it might be $100, it might be $200, whatever you decide. Well, I wanted to highlight a few clients just in the last week or two that have decided to invest and also decided to donate to JWB Cares. We've raised over $500 just by very giving folks like yourselves out there. And these three I wanted to highlight. Tracy donated with her very first investment property. She donated $100. This was on May 9th, which is, I don't know, what's today?
12th.
May 12th. There we go. A few days ago.
Monday.
Brett and Glennie, I also believe this was their very first investment property, donated $100 as well. And then Elsalyn also donated $100. So, you know, moving mountains and changing people's lives, it usually is the combination of a lot of very small actions over time, consistently good people. And so I wanted to recognize those very giving individuals to help us support this mission.
That's a lot of good news, GC.
You know, the standards set really high. I wanted to bring it for Madison in Madison's honor here.
You did a good job. You did a good job. You know, I love the idea of a community coming together for a mission.
Yep. And
you know that I love Habitat for Humanity because Habitat is the nonprofit that started me on the journey that has me here in this chair.
Love it.
Because everything that we're doing here, I learned through nonprofits, and Habitat was the first one I was on the board for. So love it. Great news today. And I don't think there's any breaking news. So I think we're just going to go straight to the star of the show. Shawn.
Yeah.
You are the guest investor today. You've come a long way, my friend, from that spike ball tournament. What are you invested in these days? Before we go to the property and then we get into your story, what are you investing in these days? What does your portfolio look like? And then let's talk some property before we get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, I got 3 family houses in Connecticut. That's actually where it all started. I had a condo down in Myrtle Beach. And then from that point on is when I went down to Jacksonville, and I picked up one property, a single. And then I went down, I got a duplex, another single, and I just recently picked up another single in December. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. We're going through the refinance process and the rehab. And then I'm expecting to be down there in July, August and pick up like 3 to 5 more before the year ends.
I love that,
So
man.
That's the plan.
That's great. Full-time real estate investor. You got properties in 3 different states, 4 different cities, making moves, man. I love that story.
Yeah.
Love that story. All right. Well, we are going to test your expertise right now when we magically whisk ourselves away here to 7611 Katina Drive, Jacksonville, Florida, 32211. I used to be Mr. Pronounce Everything Right. And now it's like
how the mighty have fallen.
Jacksonville, Florida. It is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with a purchase price of $230,000, a 1-car garage, a lease of 2 to 3 years of $1,538, and an estimated financing total monthly cash flow of $74, and a estimated conventional financing total ROI, IRR, calculation of 11.93%. GC, what do you love about this house?
Thought you'd never ask. Here's what I love about this property. All right. A lot of times in today's market, it's really, really hard to be able to buy a rental property, right? Many of you who are trying to do this on your own, right? You're putting offers in and you're getting rejected, and then you're getting outbid and all of these good things, right? It's very, very difficult. The thought of actually being able to buy a rental property like this one, which is available, like to look at it, to be able to make a decision to put it under contract is really unheard of in today's market. We're lucky because we do have inventory and this one is available and you don't have to be on a waiting list to buy this property. So availability is a really cool thing. But the reason why I have chosen this one and the reason why I love it the mostest is because not only is it available, but it's already rented. That just doesn't happen in today's environment. When you're buying a rental property, many times you're putting it under contract, and then there will be some renovations that will be done, and then there will be a process of renting that property out. So your money's just like tied up and not receiving income for many, many months, especially even, you know, if you're going to buy new construction properties, right? Think about putting a deposit down and it might take 6 or 9 months for you to actually close on the property and receive income. But not with this property. This one on Katina is available and it's already rented. The resident here has been living in this home since 2012.
2012.
Since 2012.
10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think when somebody lives in a home for 10 years that they're probably planning on being there for a while longer?
I would assume at that point they call it their home.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that I love about it. The other thing, and kind of the icing on the cake for this one, is the buyer credit that comes along with this property. This is one of the largest buyer credits that I think we've had on the show. It's one of the largest buyer credits that we've offered on a property. And so there's an $8,000 buyer credit that goes to the buyer who buys this property. And we can go into why that makes sense for all parties here. But imagine you can buy a property that's available today. It's already rented. And then you're going to receive an $8,000 check at closing, right? What that does is set you up incredibly for success and to be able to hit your return on investment expectations. So a lot to love about this property.
Shawn, when we throw this thing on screen, what are you looking at? Is there anything in here? You know, Gregg mentioned a bunch of stuff, but initially, what was your reaction when you see this? What are you looking at when you are evaluating this?
To start things off, I'm looking at cash flow. Location is huge, and seeing what's going on around there. Are there new builds? Are there Starbucks going up, Dunkin' Donuts, things of that nature? Are we going through a transition here, or is this neighborhood going to stay where it's at? So those are some of the things I take into consideration right off the bat.
Interesting. I don't think anybody's ever brought up looking for a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts on the show. Tell me more about that, man.
What that tells me is maybe in the Florida area, Publix, that the community's going through a transition, and it's not what it was yesterday, because I'm not looking at yesterday. I'm looking at 5 to 10 years from now. So if I see new builds going up and I see things like that, there's a pretty good chance my property is going to be worth a lot more than it was when I purchased it. If I see those things, if I see other things, maybe on the negative side, then there's a pretty good idea that's not going in the right direction.
Interesting. GC, you got anything to say about that?
I do. I think this is something that I hear a lot of from other investors. And, you know, not every strategy is exactly the same. Shawn's strategy is a little bit different than what we would call our turnkey clients' strategy is, right? Shawn is doing this and has kind of created his own business model to be able to invest in different cities. There's an active component of this where he is actually sourcing the deals himself. Everything's not really handed to Shawn on a silver platter and said, here's how you can invest passively. Shawn, would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you're going down the path that Shawn is going down, you have the ability to earn much higher returns on investment, right? Because you're doing a lot of the work, and you have risks as well. You have a lot higher risks, right? That should make sense for everybody. One of the things that you can do to really capitalize in a market is if you want to try to time a neighborhood or a part of the market that you think is going to be improving, right, because of Starbucks or whatever makes sense, right? Well, then you can not only get the appreciation from the market growth, but you might be able to get more than the market growth appreciation, right? And that really is a huge opportunity. That's a little bit different than what we do at JWB, all right? So at JWB, I want you coming into this thing, looking at this 11.9% return on investment and saying, here's what JWB has a large degree of control over, right? We're going to be in a workforce housing neighborhood, right? Below middle income. Right? We know what the neighborhood is right now. We know the rents that we can earn for you. We know the growth overall of the Jacksonville market. And if this neighborhood does not improve at all, are you going to be super excited about this investment? We know that we have an impact to be able to get that type of growth, but we want clients coming in expecting that this neighborhood is going to be the exact same. Because what that does is it gives us an opportunity to underpromise and overdeliver. If we were to start representing our neighborhoods as, hey, it's this way right now, but expect it to be like this in the future, that is not something that we have a high degree of control over, right? And that's something that we could set up unrealistic expectations for. And so we want to focus on what we have a high degree of control over. It's the neighborhood that we see right now, the returns that we see right now, the management team, obviously, to make this a passive investment. If that makes sense to you and these returns work for you, and this experience works for you, that's really kind of our core message, which is a little bit different. And neither is right or wrong or what have you. It's just a little bit of a different way to accomplish the goal.
I like it. I love it. I love it. All right, Shawn, the other thing that you said that I want to key in on, right, which is something that we do talk a lot about, and you kind of said it perfectly, is this idea that you're looking at cash flow a certain way, but you're also looking at the appreciation rate on the other go as the big profit center. Go deeper into that. What is the thinking and the logic behind that?
Well, the logic is the property that any property I pick up, I want to run the numbers and I want to make sure it cash flows immediately. That way I'm winning from the jump. But it's really about long-term appreciation. It's long-term wealth at the end of the day, something that I could hand out to my daughter and she could be happy with. And she just had a grandchild, so maybe he could have a piece of the pie. But that's where the real money is. The cash flow is just to hold me down until while this thing builds appreciation, equity, and obviously why I have a tenant paying that note for me. So that's really why cash flow is the first thing, but it's not the most important at the end of the day, to me.
Beautifully said. Shawn, what do you think about, because I know you work with a lot of other investors and you're, in the groups that you're a part of and who you network with, what do you say to other investors who say, listen, if I don't get $300 a month in cash flow, it's not a good deal for me?
Well, I would tell them definitely to look at the long-term goal, the appreciation, obviously. And then, like 300, I mean, it's still 300. It adds up. It's still 36. You know what I always say at the end of the day? It's still $3,600 a year. So what happens is people are so happy when they go from $40,000 to $45,000 a year. I say, okay, well, I'll give you a property that makes, $3,600. Oh, that's nothing. You over here running around, so happy for $5,000 at the end of the year, but $3,600 for doing nothing, and it's going to appreciate over time, and that's not a good deal. Like, come on.
Right.
What do you want?
I love it, man. It's an understanding and a belief that over the long haul, where are your greatest source of return on investment coming from? Cash flow is important, but when you hold on to this thing for 10 years or 20 years, like I have, right, you're going to see that the vast majority of your returns do not come from cash flow. It comes from home price appreciation. You just got to be in the game long enough to realize that.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Lee brings up a really good point, right? Like this property has had a tenant in for 10 years. So you haven't been in there to upgrade it to JWB standards due to the long-term residency. And I assume that's what that $8,000 credit is all about, right? You want to tell me a little bit more about kind of like how to consider that buying decision based on this $8,000 credit?
So every time that we sell a property, we actually do get eyes on the property and we understand and make sure that it's up to the JWB standard. But the question is, do we go in and replace those things before we would offer this property? The answer is no. So prior to selling this property, our team inspects it and understands, are we at that JWB standard with no deferred maintenance of those major mechanical items like we were talking about? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then you're going to see this reflected somewhere in a buyer credit. So when we're talking about this $8,000 buyer credit, right? The way this is positioned is right now, this home and this buyer credit is given because it is under rented currently. That resident has been there for so long and rents have gone up so much in the last couple of years that they are now $330 per month under rented right now. So the way that you get to a buyer credit, the way that we do this, and this is a JWB thing to make sure people are set up for success, is we see what the difference is, and then we give that credit for a 2-year period. Well, in this property, so 330 times, 24 months is roughly $8,000. So that's how that credit comes about. Well, this property has a renewal date coming up at the end of 2022. Okay, so in like 5 months from now. So if that resident chooses to renew, they are now going to be at the market rate for the renewal. So they're immediately caught up. If they choose not to renew, the house will be rented at that market rate. So here, this $8,000 credit, the reason why it's there is it works well for the owner if that resident doesn't renew, you still get 2 years worth of that difference, right? Even though 1 year into it, when it gets rented again, you're going to be at the new market rate. There's something left over there just in case there would be a turn, right? There would be an expense that would be, out of line with the JWB standard. There's still something there to make sure that that person is taking care of the person who buys the property. So long story short, but the reason that that buyer credit is there is to make sure that if we were below the JWB standard in any way, shape, or form, whether that's rent or mechanicals or whatnot, you're going to see that reflected in a buyer credit, which is what you see here.
Interesting. Shawn, you are a more sophisticated investor than me. What should I be asking? What are you thinking when he says all that? Because I'm literally looking at this house with Brandon right after this.
You are.
No, it makes total sense. It's JWB is just going to give you that without you even asking. A lot of times you have to ask the buyer or the seller rather for concessions based on things of that nature. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. JWB is just giving it to you off the rip, which is great. So I would look at what's wrong with it. Is it, what is this 7.5? What is it? Is it a roof? Is it the AC? Is it a plumbing, electrical? Like what exactly is it that constitutes that 7.5? Or is it just a bunch of everything because it's an older house? I don't really know. I'd have to dig a little bit deeper to see what it is, because some things are obviously I'm going through roofs right now, and they're not fun. I mean, they're done in 2 days, but it's $20,000 later. So it all depends on what it is. I'd have to dig a little bit deeper to be honest with you.
What's your answer to that, GC?
You shouldn't be worried about a roof. You shouldn't be worried about a major mechanical item. You shouldn't be worried about it. When you're buying a JWB property, you shouldn't be worried about that. We're trying to serve this up on a silver platter. So the advice that Shawn has given is absolutely wonderful advice. But the reason you're coming to JWB is because you don't need to worry about that, right? This house has been professionally renovated or newly built. So you should look at that maintenance percentage as not saying, oh, geez, what's left to be fixed that's contributing to that 7.5%, because that's not our standard. Our standard is that everything is fixed to the standard of no deferred maintenance, right? So here, what you and Brandon can sit down and talk about is, hey, let's look at that inspection. Let's look at that standardization report, right?
Okay.
Who in our team talked and went through that report, and what did we know? Because I didn't look at that report ahead of time here.
Okay.
But that report may say, listen, your roof was replaced here, your major mechanicals were all replaced here. This is up to the JWB standard.
Got it.
That may be the case. There may also be something that we noted. Hey, listen, your AC is, 15 years old. You know what? We've put in $4,000 here for an expected replacement there. So I think that dialogue is really, really valuable. And I'm sure that's what you and Brandon will sit down and talk about. But I want to make sure people know that that's not, if that was the case, we've already thought about that. That's the reason why we've created this buyer credit, so that we can get to that JWB standard every time. And that 7.5% that you see there is not based on things that are left to be done. That is based on over 2,500 properties that we analyze every single month and every year to see how do the other 2,500 properties that are just like this house on Katina Drive perform for an average maintenance cost. And that's really what that's based on. And you're right, Shawn, there is a little bit of fluff there. Other places that you go and buy properties at are not taking a maintenance item that is real based on numbers. They're not including what's happening in the marketplace today, which is that costs are rising on items that would fall under maintenance costs. I mean, we all see that: labor, supplies, right? So this is a little bit higher than what we've performed at overall. And that's why you come to JWB too, because you're going to be holding on this thing for, a full market cycle. And that's the state of the economy. So we do take that into account as well.
Awesome. That's why I come to JWB. That's why I come to the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm getting coaching from Shawn. I'm getting advice from GC. I'm getting advice from Lee and Drew in the chat, man. This is the best. So, as of right now, I'd like to take the focus off myself and put the focus on the man right here. Sean McCarville. Sean,
Yeah.
so you did not buy these properties with JWB. You bought these properties. You were already a fan of the show, but you bought them with somebody else, and you had somebody else property managing before you changed. You want to tell us kind of what happened there and like give us a peek into that journey?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I went down to Jacksonville. I had already had one property down there, and then I was looking to pick up some more, and I had an agent that was with me, and she was really good at doing the wholesaling deals and you know, get them relatively inexpensive. So she got me and my buddy that believed in me. I gotta give him a shout out, my man Big Kurt out in PA.
Shout out to Big Kurt.
Shout out. Yeah, so we went down there, and she picked us up a property, a duplex and a single, and I had said I'm probably gonna go through JWB because I know that what they're doing. I know that they're really, you know, they got a nice little hold on Jacksonville, to be honest with you. So she says, "Oh, I have a property management company," and being the loyal guy that I am, I said, "Okay, you know, it's only right that I go through you." So what happens is she had somebody else doing the work for her. It was like her company, but someone else was doing the work for her, and it just wasn't up to my standards. And after talking to her, it wasn't even up to her standards. So she let the person go. That I just found out earlier recently. And you know, there's the things that were the problems with the lack of communication. I said earlier before when we were talking, Pablo, that I was having a rehab done. So I had people going to one of the houses. And so I went there and the lady didn't expect me coming because the message was never relayed. So she said to me, "What if I didn't know who you were?" And I came out with my gun. I was like, well, good thing that didn't happen. So anyway, the point of the matter was I gave her my phone number and I said, "Okay, call me or I'll let you know whenever someone's coming down there now." And what was happening was that was her opportunity to call me and put me on basically game as to everything that was going on or not going on. So then I put in my 2-month termination, my 60-day notice. And then at that point in time, I started talking to Mike Stewart at JWB. And I said, "Here's one right now that I have, and the rest of them will be yours in June." And that's where we are now.
Incredible. I love having Sean on the show here for so many reasons, because of our relationship and because there's just you're just genuine, man. It's just awesome. I love people getting to hear your story. But it's also really wonderful to see somebody else that we're able to help in a very different capacity. And I have this belief, and if I'm out with local networking groups or speaking or whatever, there's many times that I'll have the conversation where I'm talking about whatever, JWB, and people come up to me and they're like, "Wow, you know what? I don't think turnkey is right for me because I might be a more active investor. I wish you guys would just manage properties for me." And I'm like, "Yo, we do that." That's what we do, right? That's like 25% of the properties we manage are for outside investors like Sean. So it's really wonderful to see how we can work together in a slightly different capacity, because this is something that we've got this property management that's built. And it's such an asset to have effective property management if you believe in holding on to these assets long-term. And it's not perfect. It's not right for everybody to be buying the turnkey way. So I hope this is a beginning, especially for those folks who are watching on the show and may have other properties in the Jacksonville market. For those who are listening on the podcast, like, JWB is open for business for property management clients. That's like what we do. And so it's really cool to hear your story, bud.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Kurt, I would love to go back a little before that, right? So you told me not that you quit your job like 2-3 years ago. You were working in nonprofits, right? Like, how did you, and now you're owning properties in multiple states, and you just moved to Houston. I'm assuming you have a pretty flexible lifestyle right now, right? Like, what did it take for you to start getting into this game, man? I would love to know the origin story.
Well, it's kind of a funny story, and it has a whole bunch of turns and twists to it. But I originally, like, I remember when I was in middle school, we had a science teacher. He was a teacher by day, an investor by night, I believe. So he was always talking about real estate. And the word around the school was that he was a pretty smart guy and pretty wealthy. Like, he did this teaching job was for fun.
Cool.
So he was really into real estate. And I used to always tell my mom at the time, we need to buy a house. We need to buy a house. We need to buy a house. Not necessarily thinking about a real estate, but just to get out of a better neighborhood, a better house. And you know, the money wasn't there, whatever. She was a single mom. So we had to do what we had to do. But that was one part. Another part of it was I wasn't always in the position that I'm in now. I had, this is funny, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I got to keep it 100. I used to like be that guy that had a girlfriend and I stayed there. And sometimes I didn't come home on time and my stuff was in the street. so I said to myself, I said, you know what? I'm never going to put myself in a situation again. I'm just going to start buying properties. And then, so I initially bought 3 families and I would live in one and the other, rent out the other 2. And then, you know, I got another one. And then I just started my life became more and more flexible. I started having money to go places and do things that I never had before. And then it brought me so much freedom. And then it changed me as a person. It changed my mindset, how I started looking at things, how I started thinking. And it just became somewhat like addictive, so to speak. It's just like, I just want to get more. I just want to get more. I love being free. I love being able to go wherever I can. And obviously, like, I want to be able to help other people out, and I want to be able to help my family out as well. So it's, you know, that's, you know, all of them together combined, you know, got me moving and motivated me.
I love hearing that. You know, it's just so cool to hear the motivations and the reasons why from our clients, right? Clients like Shawn. And it's interesting, you know, if you go to other networks or groups or shows or whatnot, and you're talking about real estate, you get people on that are talking about, oh, I'm motivated because I want to make $1 million or $1 billion or have a yacht or make this or that or the other thing. You know, you're hearing Shawn talk about controlling his time, right? Helping create a legacy for his friends and his family, right? Those are the things that I get fired up about, right? And those are the motivations that I think really, really win long-term. That's why this asset class is built perfectly for it. Thank you for sharing your story, man. I know that resonated with everybody.
Hey, man, you know, that's got to just tell the truth, man. I try not the best motivation, but, you know, it is motivation to help me along the way.
Listen, man, what really resonates with me, Shawn, is this idea of a mindset change. Like for me, it's this journey and being the host on this show and hearing stories like yours and Jen's and Lee's and Drew's and all the amazing people that we've had kind of come through here, has me completely looking at cash flow and financial vehicles and debt and these things so different than the way I was raised, right? Like you and me were just talking before the show about how you keep telling your friends are seeing how you're doing and you're like, get into this, man. And it isn't really landing yet, right? Like I've been going through the journey of trying to talk to my old man about this, right? Like who is successful. He doesn't look at me as his financial advisor in any way, right? I'm his youngest child, right? I'm, you know, it's not that relationship, but I see him taking a beating in the stock market and late in life and how that's affecting his life and his cash flow and his quality of life. And as I'm talking to him, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And I'm just like, oh, you just haven't gone through this mindset shift yet of the way that you look at money and debt and stuff like that. Talk to me about how you got Lydia here and Kurt's in the house, right? Like people are paying attention to you, man. Like what are those conversations like of when they're coming to you and asking you for advice of how they can get into this? Like, what are you telling them? Like, what's the step for somebody that was in your position 5 years ago to start, you know, moving this way?
You know what? My buddy Kurt, he had already picked up a house in Pennsylvania, so he was already on track. He wanted to move forward and scale his business. So I said, you know, come on, let's do something together here. And so he's listening. The people that aren't listening, and what I tell them is, I mean, I walk the way I walk and I talk the way I talk, and I'm just basically saying, like, if I could do this, so can you. Like, I'm nobody different. I'm no special. I wasn't born with a whole bunch of stuff going on. Like, you know, so if I could do it, all you got to do is just change your mindset. you have to obviously look at money differently, and you have to I don't, this is a tough one for me because I tell them all the same thing, but they, they just, some of them listen, some of them don't, but I don't really know how it all came about. Really, it just kind of like, I was reading books, I was listening to JWB, I was watching, and then I started putting it into place, and things started moving in the right direction. And I try to, just say that. But the hardest thing I'll tell anybody is getting off your feet and starting.
Right.
But once you start, you're going to keep on moving forward. And that's all I ever say. I say, you're going to run into problems. Trust me, I did.
Yep.
But just keep moving forward. And that's what I say. And I just tell them, like, you have a job, call up a mortgage, call up a lender, call up a bank, get qualified. And I always tell people, and this is probably a little bit against what JWB does, because JWB is more single family, but where I'm from in Connecticut, we have a lot of multis. So I always say, the way I started, go get yourself a multi. If you don't have a house, get yourself a little FHA loan, 2 or 3K, fix it up, clean it up, live in one, rent out the other 2. And then when the time comes, it may take a year, 2 or 3, I don't know when, go ahead and refinance that property, take that money out and do it again. And then just continue that process over time. And it's no sprint, it's a marathon, but you have to start. You can't just sit here and talk to me about it and always tell me no. I said, you need to open your mind and start saying, well, how can I do this? What do I need to do? Stop saying, well, I can't, because that's what I hear all the time. And I just, well, you need to open up. And, that's probably what I would say to most of the time to most people. To be honest, so you just know it's no like formula. It's just get off your butt and let's go.
Yeah.
Super inspiring, man.
I love it, man. I always think I think about myself, where my dad would tell me about real estate, when I was in high school or in college, he would tell me about real estate and I paid zero attention to it. Like I was busy doing other things. It did not cross my mind. And then when I had a really painful experience in corporate America and my career path shifted, it was almost like an earthquake, like in my mind of how I was going to be in my career. That's when I was like, oh, wait, what was my dad saying? What? All of those lessons that we had talked about for so long. And then I was like, hey, what's a good book for me to read? And I picked up a book from his bookshelf and it was called The Weekend Millionaire. And then I went and I found a mentor, and I found, this was in 2006. We didn't have access to a show like this and a community like this, where we actually get together in real life and in virtual on the show twice a week. Right. But that painful experience was necessary for me, because that's what motivated me to get off of my butt and to think differently. And so I really think people have to have that pain somewhere. Because that is the only thing that, listen, it's hard to have a mindset shift. It's a sacrifice that you are willing to take on to change your mindset. We're just not going to do that if things are going well, So I agree with you. And I just think it is so much easier today to take that first step than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. Right. And so, that first step is the most important one.
It is. It really is. And it's the hardest one for people to take, because once you take the first step, after that, you're just going to keep moving forward, whether you're walking, crawling, or running, you're moving forward. That's all that matters. And, that's the biggest step. Absolutely. And open your mind. I tell people, COVID, as much as it is a pandemic and is a negative as far as life and everything that happened and all the nonsense that we're going through, but it gave me a lot of time, because I had to sit in the house for damn near a year and a half, and I read books.
Yeah.
And it changed. Reading books will change your mind, and you'll start thinking differently, and it really does. And then you'll start moving different, and then things just start happening. And it's almost crazy, because it's hard for me to say it, but it's real though. It's real. It's not no made up. I'm not,
You can't go back.
Yeah, it's not no made up nonsense. It's
Yep.
it's really going on. It's really happening.
And I do want to say your strategy of buying a multifamily as a first investment property that you live in and then also rent out, I'm a huge advocate of that. Right.
Yeah.
That's not what we do at JWB. It doesn't work that it's all, mainly
I got you.
investment property. But for somebody taking their first step, follow Shawns' advice there. Look into loan products like FHA, which require a very small down payment. 203K is another loan product.
Absolutely.
So another example where if you're saying, I want to do this, but the money is preventing me, Shawn just threw out 2-3 solutions to your problem, right? In his talk right there, right? The money typically is not the biggest obstacle. It's not, it's just not. It's that mindset. It's surrounding yourself with people who have accomplished what you want to accomplish. And that's what we got with Shawn.
No, absolutely.
So good. So good. So yeah, so I'm hearing a couple of things on tactical advice. Number one, this mindset idea, right? So to me, it's the knowledge piece, whether it's a book or podcasts or Shawn, we talked about this a little bit before the call, this idea that for a while you're learning and then you're out executing, right? So there's a rhythm to it. The idea of getting that FHA loan to buy a multifamily, live in one and rent them out. I was just talking to somebody about house hacking, which is kind of a similar concept, right? Getting a loan and renting out the rest of the rooms, maybe an Airbnb, a couple of different entry points. Let's talk a little bit more of people that are more mobilized already, right? Shawn, you're now at a different level than that beginner real estate investor. You've set up kind of an infrastructure around it and you're in multiple markets. What brought you to Jacksonville? Like what did you see that made you, it sounds like you have more holdings in Jacksonville right now than in the other places. What made you take that?
Well, honestly, like I went to a convention and like, this is like post quitting my job. And this is when I was 110% into real estate. I went down to Jacksonville to a convention. And one of the speakers was saying that the mayor here is doing a lot of big things. He said, this place is coming up. Before you know it, people are going to start knowing about it. And like I said, we went on a tour. We looked at some houses. I think they brought us like to the worst houses possible. So I didn't have the best feel for Jacksonville. It was a little bit different from what I'm used to. So I went back though, and I said, you know what? I'll be honest, like listening to JWB and seeing how they were moving and seeing how things were moving and listening to Gregg talk, putting everything into perspective, I said, you know what? I got to go down and give Jacksonville another chance because it's not what's today. It's about what's tomorrow. So, I have to think about that. I have to start putting that in place because if you go down and you see what it is right now, you're going to walk away. And that's a big mistake. So I went down and I picked up one. And then I started moving around the properties, the different neighborhoods that Gregg was talking about. And I say the 08s, the 5-4s, the 11s was really big, 4-4 maybe, but whatever. So I was just going down there and I started, looking at it and I started seeing how people were talking and they were saying, yeah, this house back in the day was like 30,000. Now it's like 60. And then a couple of years, and that might be 100 now, depending. I don't know. The rents are skyrocketing. People were really talking. Some people were hitting a negative way. Some people were appreciating the movement. So I was in Connecticut. I knew Connecticut very well, but Connecticut, where I lived, is Waterbury, Connecticut, and it's not really growing the right way. First of all, it's cold. We ain't got the Florida sun. We don't have the beach. So Jacksonville had everything, not to mention though, the airport, not to mention that they had the truck, obviously, had the boat, the docks. It had everything so that Amazon was able to go in there and create jobs. So there was a lot of things that were going on in Jacksonville. And I said, you know what, let me just focus down there and pick up everything and get as many as I can before it gets to the point where everyone finds out about it. And that's really why I stopped in Connecticut and I focused primarily on Jacksonville at this point in time.
Interesting. So you were betting on the market, right? Like kind of what we talk about.
Well, I felt like I was listening.
Yeah.
I felt like I was listening. I wasn't, Gregg used to say something that he said, I'm giving you guys the answers to the test right now. You have the answers before the test is even given.
That's the truth, man. I'm telling you which neighborhoods you should be investing in, which market you should be investing in, how it's largely going to appreciate in 10 to 20 year segments of time, right? Like I love that you are taking that to heart. Like, did you choose those neighborhoods because of the show and because of what you saw us doing?
Man, let me tell you, I didn't know nothing from Jacksonville. I didn't know nothing but the Jaguars.
That's not our best foot forward.
But that's all I knew. You said Jacksonville. I knew what, the Jaguars. I didn't know nothing about Jacksonville. I mean, it didn't have the best reputation, but that was a beautiful thing, though. It didn't need to.
Yeah. It's changing now. It's changing now. And there's positives and negatives to that reputation getting better.
What do you think about that, man? So you're still active, right? Like I imagine you're still in growth mode, right? Are you still focusing on acquiring more Jacksonville stuff? Are you looking at other markets? Where are you in your journey right now?
Right now, based on the strategy that I use, my money's really tied up in these rehabs. I just got the one done that a JWB has out on the market. I just got that one done. I got the duplex, and then I have the single. They're all going through a rehab right now, all in Jacksonville. And when I get my money back from them, I would say mid-June, July, I'll be back in Jacksonville. Me and my buddy Kurt down there, we're going to be looking for some more. And we're just going to repeat the cycle. We're going to go down and look for something that's a little bit distressed, the same neighborhoods, that has all the same qualities that I talked about earlier, about like maybe new builds, maybe the Starbucks and all that other stuff was maybe a different area. But as long as it has new builds and it's the communities that JWB is active in, then I know that they have the manpower and the capital to make a difference. And I'm on my surfboard riding the wave. That's it, man. That's as real as I could keep it.
But brilliant strategy. Really is. It really is. If you know that you have hundreds of millions of dollars going into certain there's only 4 neighborhoods we invest in Jacksonville. If you know that you have hundreds of millions of dollars going there, and you also have a company that is leading the charge for downtown development, at least of the small to medium-sized developers. I mean, guys, I just got the updated number. JWB owns 19 city blocks in downtown Jacksonville.
Let's go. 2 more.
It was 17 when I updated us a little while ago.
Yeah.
There's only 140 city blocks in downtown Jacksonville. And your neighborhoods, the neighborhoods that Shawn is talking about, our neighborhoods, the same thing. They're all surrounding downtown. So if you know you have these hundreds of millions of dollars that are going there, why wouldn't you choose to ride that wave? Right? And you can do that even if you don't buy turnkey properties from JWB. If you happen to be an active investor and you can take on everything that Shawn is taking on, do it, right? You probably want to come to JWB to manage your properties. That would make sense. But you go and acquire, you build that team, you do that because that is going to be the best return on investment for you.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Even if you don't have the time or energy that I have, or the patience, scoop up one of your properties, because at the end of the day, if you're okay with where you are with your job, if you're content and you have a couple dollars to spare and you want, hopefully you get a nice return on your investment, just pick up one of your properties that are already done up. Like, you don't have to do it the way other people are doing it. Just be in the game, though.
Yeah.
Just be in the game.
It's the difference between active and passive. If you want to be active, go and invest and use our playbook, right? Be active, right? You can take on the reward, you can take on the risk, but you can get a better reward to do that. If you don't have the time or the inclination to be active, then be passive and you can still enjoy this, right? You can still do this the way this turnkey operation is built. You don't have to deal with some of the headaches, hassles, and risk. But you got to be in the game.
Absolutely.
That's the other first step, right? Like we are talking, we gave very actionable, active investor first steps, right? If you need to build that up. For me, my first step was this, right? Like let's get in the game, right? Like I to me, after sitting here in this chair next to you and next to amazing people like Shawn for 2.5 years, it was clear that I just needed to get in the game, right? I have some capital, I put it in the game. Now 2 years in, I'm moving other capital to get further into the game. So I love these conversations because it really brings me to this idea that I am part of this club now. You know, like I was just talking to Marta, my wife, yesterday, and she's like, man, I can't believe we're about to buy our third home. And I'm like,
I know, right?
and she's, you know, she's not from the US, so she's not used to having debt at all.
Yeah.
Like, so like that is a very American thing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, boo, but like, who would have told you 10 years ago when you were living in Venezuela that you would own a portfolio of homes in the United States?
Right.
Right. Like this, it's crazy how it exists, right? Like how your life has changed in a short amount of time, Shawn. My life has changed in a short amount of time. Gregg's life from like when you quit, you know.
Yeah, my life has changed. My life has changed being around you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Being around this show, being around this community, it fills my bucket in a way I didn't know.
A lot of love, man.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. We got a couple of questions here real quick that we can knock out. Speaking of non-Americans, all the way from France, Anonymous Attendee asks, what are the 4 neighborhoods, right? We've been talking about these 4 neighborhoods. Let's tell people the secrets.
Yeah, we choose these neighborhoods because they are going to deliver the best risk-adjusted returns for you over the long haul. These are the same 4 neighborhoods that I've been investing. My business partners and I started to invest in 2006. We continue to own properties in those neighborhoods, and that's where we put all of our clients as well. Specifically, the reason we choose those neighborhoods are because in order to produce the best risk-adjusted returns, you have to have something that's going to mitigate risk, and that's called positive cash flow. You want to be investing in workforce housing or below middle income type neighborhoods, because that's where you get this wonderful combination of low prices and high rents. When you have low prices and high rents and you're surrounded by jobs, that creates positive cash flow opportunities. You just don't get that when you go out to anything named Beach in Jacksonville, right? Or some of the higher priced neighborhoods. You have to see the beauty in workforce housing as an investment strategy. And so, you match that cash flow opportunity with a market that grows at a higher rate than the national average and absolutely grows. It laps other cash flow markets out there. The appreciation rate in Jacksonville is much higher. That is where we put our people. So that's why we choose those 4 neighborhoods.
Awesome. And Miguel Angel Sanudo has a question. Has JWB thought about having annual rent revisions, especially in this high inflation conditions, and even more when you sign 2 to 3 year contracts?
A great question, Miguel Angel. You know, you've kind of seen our evaluations and the way we present our expected returns. It's followed a similar strategy, which is all based on data over a full market cycle. If you look at our appreciation rate, right, it's 4.6% on our evaluation, even though last year, year over year, homes appreciated at 26% in Jacksonville from March to March. I just looked at that stat. You know, if you go and look over roughly the last 10 years, it's appreciated at roughly a 10% annual appreciation rate. That's 10 years of data, but I'm still putting 4.6 here. And the reason is because we have to look longer than 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. We have to look long-term when we're setting expectations for you to handle your money. And if you go back and look over the last 40 years, on average, the market in Jacksonville appreciates at a rate of 4.6%. Now, specifically about rents, we follow that same data-based long-term market cycle strategy. And so going back to 1985, if you look at the average rent increase year over year, it's 3.3%. And that's what we have on our evaluations, even though last year, much higher, right? Even though over the last 3 years, much higher. I'm assuming that you're going to follow the advice that you hear on this show, which is buying this asset and holding on for 10 to 20 years worth of time. And you're most likely going to see about 3.3% rent price appreciation over that time period.
Got it. So
short answer is
typical GC answer.
Short answer is no, probably not going to do that on an annual basis. Not going to make rent revisions. If there is significant data to change and it's all based on long-term, you will see that number change slightly, but it won't be because of 1 year, or it won't be because we signed 2 and 3 year leases versus 1 year lease. It would be based on the long-term trajectory over full market cycle changing.
Got it. And Rick Carr is asking again, what 4 neighborhoods? It's the southwest, north, and Arlington neighborhoods. Kind of like by the airport is the north. West is kind of like by the naval base out there. South is south side kind of area. Arlington, you can find on a map. We have if you look back in the annals of the Not Your Average Investor Show playlist on YouTube or on the podcast, you can find one that we did all about the neighborhoods, Rick. So I encourage you to dive into that.
They should get on the call with our team. If you're curious about the neighborhood, schedule a time with my team. We're happy to go through that. It's a part of our normal onboarding process with clients. And so you can schedule a time to chat at chatwithjwb.com. Also, this house on, how do you pronounce the address again, Pablo?
Katina.
You got it. Katina Drive. If you're interested in this one, reach out to my team, right? If you're a current client, reach out to your portfolio manager and say, I want this house or I want something similar, and we'll start that process with you. If you're a new client, go to chatwithjwb.com, schedule a time to meet with our team, and we'll start getting you in the game.
There you go, getting in the game. Shawn, before we say goodbye to everybody, any final words of encouragement for people that want to be like, man, I want to be, I'm here now in 4 years. I want to tell the same story as Shawn. Any kind of pieces of advice?
My best advice is, like I said, just whatever. I don't know where they are, but I would just call a lender. As long as you have a job, call the bank. If you don't have a job, call private money or hard money or whatever. But just make that initial phone call and get the ball rolling, and then take it one step at a time, and you'll be there. It's really not that hard, to be honest. It's just you just gotta get in the game, man. That's gonna be the new saying: get in the game.
Rental property investing, get in the game. It's like the EA Sports,
EA
right?
Sports. I like it.
Probably where I got it from too.
Funny story. I actually made the cover of the EA Sports video game from March Madness. I don't know which year. I'm going to find it. But yeah, and I was screaming, get in the game.
That little rowdy reptile section over there.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Shawn, man, this has been one of my favorite episodes to do. The chat was on fire this whole time with like the love for the community, the love for your story. Your friends Curtis is in here having a great time, and Lydia and everybody that tuned in for you, man. You definitely brought your friends. I love it. And this has been really, really inspirational, right? Like this attaching into the life-changing power of all this stuff. And how you've taken action is very inspiring to me personally. I've really, really enjoyed meeting you. I want to thank all of our community that shows up here on a Thursday, 35 plus, to listen to you. And, taking out an hour of your day in the middle of a work day is never a small ask. So just really, really grateful. If you're listening on the podcast, it's worth your time. Take that, go to nyais.com, join us at some point. And GC, I will give you last words, my friend.
Just a really inspirational chat, Shawn. You want to talk about getting in the game and taking action. How about you driving, hours and hours to come and hang out and to say hello at Spike Ball, right? Like, that's the type of action that people need to take, right? And people just don't. They come up with excuses. You don't. You're there.
Nah, man.
Credit to your success, man.
I appreciate you guys.
So when are you coming to hang out at our next Spike Ball? When are you coming out, man?
Honestly, probably when I get this money, June, July, I'll probably be back down there with my partner.
Here's something you need to put on your calendar. We're doing a downtown walking tour for our entire community. I don't know if you've heard about it yet, but it's on June 24th. And so there's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe 50,
I think
maybe
50, 60 people,
60 investors. It's going to be our biggest one yet. Pablo and I are leading the downtown tour. You are going to be all about it, man. This is the same tour that we just took the JWB team on. Walking through downtown, sharing the vision, not just of what's going on today, what our impact is, but what it's going to look like in 2 to 5 years. You're going to love it, man. So we'll let you know about that. And for anybody else who wants to join, get in contact with Jen. Jen Filson. She is the main person to talk to all things meetups, all things IRL, the fairy godmother. So.
Awesome, man. Great show, fellas. Just want to say, if you want to get in the game, you want to be like Shawn, you can't be an average investor. See you guys next week.